Okay, so exam 2 will be cumulative. We have from 1 through 4 in financial counseling on exam 1. We've added 5 through 9 to that. Most of the surviving debt stuff you saw before. We got, I think, budgeting, increasing income, reducing expenses, and homeownership that were not on the last exam. Possibly choices to avoid, that might have been on the last one. Same setup as before, 10 multiple choice and 10 short answer. I've done all short answer, but I saw some of you cramping up in your hands, so maybe keep it at just the 10 short answer. And going into what we're covering, understanding who you are, and this goes into that client-counselor relationship, how you can deal with the clients, how you communicate with them. Who you are is going to impact that. And recognizing if they have the same things influencing their, excuse me, it's influencing them. So the money habitudes that we did at the beginning of the semester, your first memory of money, all that shapes your relationship with money, whether you're a spender or a saver, and how you are going to deal with potential issues as you face them in life. Increasing self-awareness, and it's not just on your money habitudes, on your money memories, on how you deal with money, it's how you deal with the clients. So I can go back, I can look at records of how I dealt with a loan issue, a credit issue, whatever I had with clients in the past, and how I might deal with it now, what I've learned from that. So seeking feedback specifically from clients, you can ask them to fill out a survey, face-to-face, or people tend to be more honest with those things if they're filling them out anonymously or after the fact. And then just your life experience. You've got multiple things where are ways to improve your self-awareness. Self-care is important. Remember, you've got that bonus opportunity to drop 1 assignment grade by taking a class at Direct, yoga, HIIT, whatever the class might be that will be good for you and allow you to manage some stress. We have throughout the semester to do that. Goals of financial counseling: we're motivating clients collaboratively, trying to get them to be able to spread their wings and fly. We want them to be able to deal with the problem on their own should it arise again in the future. And from our clients, we want those 3 things. Why are they here? And then what do we have resource-wise to deal with it? So understanding their cash flows. I want to know what they're spending dollars on. I want to know what the debts are and what the dollars coming in, whether that's active income, passive income, whatever it might be. I want specifics on liabilities, so assets and liabilities, or their net worth. I want to know the interest rates. I want to know the contract that the lease is going through on the cash flows. If I'm paying this much each month, what are the terms of that? And depending on what their issues are, I'm going to dig deeper or not into that lease and some other things. Knowing what assets they might have, can we borrow from a retirement account, will help me better address whatever their issues might be. Communicating with the client, I'm good.
It's not on the screen.
Okay, thank you. And let me know if it does go off. I ended up paying Google some money to expand my memory. That was the problem last time. Ethos, pathos, and logos. When we're communicating with clients, recognizing that while not everybody is going to be completely pathos, the biggest thing, the elephant that we're trying to speak to, there's going to be different percentages. Different people are going to be more responsive to different elements of that. But the biggest one is always going to be pathos, our emotions of, I'm going to be homeless, I'm stressed out by this, so empathize with them. Whatever the issue might be, we can empathize with them, and we can also add in some of that cheerleading. A great first step. You've come here for help, awesome. You paid off that debt, maybe you didn't make your goal, but awesome, we made some movement on that. We paid some of it down, and next month we'll do better. So we can use that emotion to help motivate them to reach whatever the issue goal might be. Ethos, they're going to be more trusting of us if we show that we are professionals. You've got your suit on, you've got your diplomas on the wall, the things that send a message without you saying anything, the way your office is set up. All of that is adding to your credibility. And then the logos is the dollars and cents of things. So paying off the high interest debt first is going to be financially the best move. They'll save the most on that, and you can show that to them visually. If they're a visual learner, you can show them hands-on. If they want to like crunch some numbers, use an online calculator and see that in the long run, by the time you pay off all these debts, if you go with the highest interest ones first, and then the next highest, and so on, you're gonna save more money that way. But with Pathos, the emotion, I might want the psychological, yes, I did it, sense of accomplishment of paying off the low balance debt. And maybe we'll shift to the dollars and cents later, the logical way to do it, but the Pathos is important. What's gonna be best for that specific client? And it might be different for different clients. And so I may ask you, like last time, to tell me what those are and relate them each to something in financial counseling. 3 forms of financial counseling: remedial, preventive, and productive. Most clients are coming in with a remedial issue. They are stressed out, it is top of mind, they're being evicted, something terrible has just happened, it's an immediate need. Productive, we are looking towards the future. Preventive, we have a little bit of both. Preventive, maybe I got in a car accident and so I have this sudden need of cash and I didn't put together an emergency fund, but other than that, I'm good on cash flows. It was just this unexpected expense that arose. And so dealing with the immediate and planning for the future. And so go through those, you should know those by now. Training and certification. You can be a financial counselor without any college education, any certification, anything else. You could just start doing it. But this adds to that credibility by having this knowledge base. So this class and a couple others that you take in the program allow you to sit for the accredited financial counselor exam. That would give you some credibility and a deeper dive into some specific issues that clients might face. Then they also have certified housing counselor and they have a military essentials. So depending on what clientele you're maybe trying to focus on. When we look at some of the special things that military members receive financially that other people don't have access to. Where do financial counselors work? You can do it on your own, you could work for an organization, and with all of those, you'd be working with different types of people. There's gonna be some specialized things that you would know about your particular employer. So if it's a government employer, maybe there's pension, maybe there's benefits for retirement that somebody else in the private sector might not have access to. So understanding those special needs. Same thing in hospitals, understanding the billing codes, understanding the difference between paying in cash or paying with this insurance, understanding what different insurance providers might cover. Later on, we'll talk about staying in network, if possible, for your medical needs. Will be less. In network being those hospitals that your specific insurance is partnering with. If you go out of network, it's gonna cost more. You may not always have that choice. If you get in a wreck and an ambulance takes you to the hospital, it's taking you to the nearest hospital. And the hospital might be in your network, but the doctor that helps you is potentially out of network. Those healthcare-based financial counselors would be able to help people navigate through that. How we're paid, we might have that sliding scale, meaning that I've got my own business and I'm gonna charge people that have more resources, more for my services. And that's able to give me a lower bill for somebody who has less. So I'm able to serve more people. Those workshops, maybe you're having some sort of rental space, renting out the library on campus, and you have specialized expertise in student loans or home ownership, something that is going to bring in a group of people, maybe charge them to attend, or maybe you're doing it for free and hoping to help them more later, so getting some clients out of that workshop. If you're working for one of those organizations we saw on the last slide, they would be paying you a salary. Doesn't matter how many clients you might have in a week, you're getting the same salary, you're putting in your hours and helping as best you can. Volunteering, the AFC requires you to have so many experience hours in order to get the designation. So there's those 4 E's really. Education, exam, education you're getting here, exam you would take, and experience. The fourth one would be ethics, which is basically making sure you're not a criminal and signing a pledge that you will adhere to high standards. In counseling, we have, specific to us, financial counseling, where we're dealing with financial issues. The personal counseling would go on into somebody who's depressed, somebody who has an addiction, something else where maybe you might use that external referral. Or you might be a counselor that has expertise in multiple areas and can help. Internal referral, I've got somebody down the hall that can help them out better than I can. External, I can't help you with addiction issues. I can't help you with certain things. If you do have those multiple roles, if you have the expertise in multiple areas, there's some positives to that. They're going to be more trusting of you. They've already dealt with you in one arena. Maybe you were their personal counselor dealing with emotional issues, and then they later come into financial trouble. They're going to immediately be able to go to you and trust you, or vice versa. They dealt with you with financial issues, and then later they have another issue that you can help. And it doesn't have to be those two specific arenas. It could be whatever hats you might be able to wear depending on your expertise. Negative consequences, clients might expect more, or if I'm trying to focus on the financial, and to them right now more important is their mental issues, I may not be able to make headway in the other. It's going to take more time to maintain that expertise. And going into communication, we had our different forms of communication where in person, face-to-face, I can communicate the most. I've got my body language, I've got what I'm wearing, in addition to the voice, the words I'm using, the tone, the rate, all those things that are going to tell you something, the vocabulary, the words I choose to say. Video chat, we still have a lot of that. And then as we go down into some of these others, we don't have as much to work with. With the phone, you've still got the voice and all those things that come with the voice, the tone, the rate, the volume, where with the remaining ones, instant message through Twitter, you just have words on a screen. So we can use emojis, we can clarify that, hey, I'm just joking with whatever the thing is, because the same words read by different people could be misinterpreted, and that can cause issues. With some of those, you also have the ability to create a profile and recognizing your audience. The instant message is probably going, instant message, text message, email, probably going to one specific person. Maybe you've got a group chat or a group email, but for the most part, if they're an individual or a group, you'd be using pretty much the same language for all of them. When I get into Facebook status, Twitter, where maybe I have a public account and anybody can read what I post, you would think, what audience is going to even be reading it? There's going to be a lot of people who look at it different ways. I guess Twitter is X now, so should update. We're always communicating, so whether you're saying something or not, you are communicating. If there's somebody else around, they are getting some sort of communication from you. You may not personally interact with them at all, but just seeing somebody at a grocery store, that's communicating something to you. Is the person stressed? Are they happy about the price of apples? You know, whatever they're looking at, like they're communicating something, and you can't help but take in some of that. We've talked about, here's our voice, the words I choose, the action I take, the space, am I right in your face? Am I far away? Tonality, so the tone, am I sarcastic, am I angry, am I happy? The rate, do you speak fast or slow, and some of that's gonna be personal, but also people tend to speak faster when they're nervous. Volume, are they shouting at you, are they whispering? We had the idea of males being more maybe aggressive in their language, more demanding, where women tend to have more collaborative word choices. Additional impressions are going to impact the whole client interaction. Are they going to trust us? So that initial impression built upon what we were communicating without words. Our office space, where it's set up, our clothing, the things on the wall, how we have decorated our office, all that is impacting something. And beyond that, just when you go to a job interview, when you are meeting someone for the first time, that initial impression is going to continue to influence that relationship, whatever the relationship might be. Stopping someone's world, if they are on the receiving end of an eviction notice, that's their primary focus. They're gonna be much more receptive to taking in communication on that specific thing. They're gonna be focused on that. With those components and process elements, we saw the feedback loop, where I'm sending something, it is going to be received by you, but in between there is the potential for miscommunication. And then that comes back to me, and it continues to loop. Is it just following? Maybe if I turn it. Thank you. Yeah.
Will we have to do that graph again? Not graph, the little visual of the communication process.
No, I won't make you draw it again. So some things you'll see again. You'll pretty much always get a question on what is the purpose of financial counseling, and what are the three things we want from every client. Beyond that, it can vary, but you'll see those two questions every time. Because you should know what you're doing in this class and how to do it. That is very basic element.
And what are those three things again?
Their issue, their cash flow, and their net worth. An issue could be plural. They may have issues that they don't realize that we can draw out of them as we speak, and then we'll prioritize those to figure out what to deal with first if we can't deal with all of them at once. But communication is always being influenced and has obstacles, so both of those kind of together. The influences could be positive. It could be, man, I had a great interaction with a financial counselor in the past. I'm gonna have a great interaction again. This is gonna solve my problem just like it did in the past. The obstacles can be the noise outside, the heat, the misinterpretation of something, all those different things that can make it more difficult to get the message across. I mean, language can be a barrier. You pulled up your own credit report. You should know what credit is. It is, I'm buying something now and I'm paying for it later. So somebody is lending me that money, they're paying for it. Chase, Visa, they are paying for the groceries I just bought, and then I'm gonna pay them back. If I don't pay them back, they're gonna charge me a high rate of interest. We've got different ways we can get this. This could be a home mortgage, car loan, but somebody else is paying for it. So advantage, I could use this as an emergency fund. That car repair that the client I mentioned earlier who was preventive had the immediate issue with no emergency fund. Well, great, you've got these credit cards. We can keep your car running and then create a budget to pay that back over time, along with planning for the future. So they were in that good situation. Disadvantage, I might buy things that I don't need. We had that impulse shopping, we had stress shopping, not realizing how much it's gonna cost us to buy this t-shirt today, where I really wanted the t-shirt, but I didn't have the money, and now I can't pay off my credit card. I'm just paying that minimum balance off. It's gonna cost me a lot of money over time, depending on how quickly I do it. Other advantage, if I am using that rewards card, so if I'm using the card responsibly, I'm paying it off every month, I'm earning some sort of reward. I'm getting a discount on what I buy, and my dollars are in a savings account, invested somewhere. They're able to earn money for me. So credit cards are great if you're using them well, but if you don't, they've got higher interest rates than a mortgage, a car loan, some other things. We've got the idea that if we don't use the credit responsibly, we're gonna pay more for it. And last exam, we did the math on a car loan where two different people were buying the same car, the same price car. One of them was gonna pay much more in interest because they had poor credit, meaning they were riskier to the lender. If they're riskier to the lender, they have to expect a greater reward, so they're gonna charge a higher interest rate. It's expensive to be poor. More rejections of loans, places just may not be willing to lend to you at all, or they're not gonna let you buy the $1 million house, but you can buy the $200,000 house, because they'll lend you that much. So you saw the credit report, you looked up your own, and we had our different information on there. So everything financial related, they knew what type of loan it was, if this was a credit card, if this was a store membership, if this was our streaming service with Netflix, Hulu, something like that. If it was a mortgage, how much do I owe them? If it's a credit card, what is the credit limit? If I'm gonna potentially lend you money, I wanna know that if you have 3 cards with a credit limit of $20,000 each, tomorrow you could be $60,000 in debt. What's your past history? Have you been paying those cards off? Are you likely to go $60,000 in debt tomorrow? When things happened, if you have bank accounts, things like that, what's going on there, and have you been paying regularly? What they do not know is what I'm buying. So they can see that I use my credit card and regularly spend this much every month and regularly pay it off, but they don't know what I'm buying. They don't know what stores I'm shopping at. They don't know if it's gas or what. They might see that I have a medical bill that I haven't paid or did pay, whatever. They're gonna see that, but they won't know specifically what I got. They might be able to see, oh, it's a dentist's office, he probably had some dental work done, but they're not gonna know what it was. Race and gender, they have no idea. Religion, nationality. Criminal background would be a separate thing. So if you're trying to get a job, a lot of employers, pretty much everywhere you'd be interested in working, would do a criminal background check, but that'd be separate from a credit report. Non-credit depository institution accounts. So if it's not one that is registered, they're not seeing it. If you're keeping money in a piggy bank, if you're borrowing money from a friend, a family member, and paying them back, that's not reported. To FICO, which collects all that information, and then Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, our 3 credit reporting agencies, would never see that information. You saw already how to get your free credit report, and then what the scores mean for your ability to repay. The higher your score, the better off you're gonna be as far as getting loans and getting more favorable terms on those loans. The lower, they may not be willing to lend you anything. Those scores are created with these different 2 elements. So those different elements, some are gonna be weighted heavier than others. And you can see what each one is weighted. You saw that on the last exam. I may ask it again, but understanding what contributes to your credit score. And keep in mind that the credit report doesn't contain a credit score. That's just all those things that you spent on that slide. We saw the stuff that is on the credit report. The credit score is a separate calculation. If your client has poor credit, we can help them build credit with these different tools. Take out a small loan. They may not be able to get that large mortgage, but maybe we get a small personal loan. The bank is able to say, well, I trust you'll probably pay this $5,000 back, and if you don't, it was just $5,000, I'll sell it off to some debt collector and it won't be the end of the world. But if I lend you $300,000 and you don't pay that, that's gonna be a big hit. Having somebody co-sign on your credit card, you have to find somebody that would be willing to do it. I wouldn't recommend you co-sign on loans or credit cards for clients, because if it's not paid back, it's gonna go on your credit report. You're gonna be responsible for those debts as well. You could have debt collectors coming after you because it's your debt, you signed on for it. That secured card, now we talked about different types of credit cards, where I mentioned the rewards card earlier. That's the one you want if you're being responsible with your credit. You are paying off every month, you're getting a discount, and with all the cards, if they are lost or stolen, I can tell the credit card company, hey, this was lost, those charges weren't me, and you're not responsible for them, as long as you let them know in a timely manner. With a secured credit card, you are unable to get that unsecured line of credit. They have to have a security deposit. So I'd give them $200, $150, whatever the secured card terms say. I'll give them that amount in cash, and I would treat that as a regular credit card, but I would be able to spend more than that deposit. That way they're not risking anything. They're keeping that money, and I am still responsible for paying my balance every month. So if I spend $100 this month, even though they have that $200 security deposit, I'm paying them $100. After 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, whenever they've set that term and agreed, okay, you've been using it responsibly, here's your security deposit back, that secured card becomes an unsecured card. A regular credit card that is your promise to pay. They're gonna look at your credit utilization ratio. If you have that $20,000 credit limit, are you spending $20,000 every month? If so, well, maybe you should get a higher line of credit. You can reach out to the credit card company and say, hey, I need a higher credit limit. And if you're using it responsibly, they're probably gonna give it to you. You can open up another credit card, something that keeps you from putting it up to the full 20,000. Instead, we wanna be 1 to 30%. If we're not using it all, they're gonna look at it as a potential red flag. Yeah.
What if you're using all of it, like you have a $2,000 a month available credit and you're just maxing it out every month? Does that improve your credit score?
Yeah, because it's gonna show that you're above that 30% that they like to see.
Okay.
So they wanna show this idea that you have excess, just in case something goes wrong, you could fix the car, the heater in your house, the sudden unexpected expense, you've got dollars. But if you're spending the full credit limit of $2,000 every month, you might ask to raise the credit limit or get another credit card so you could spread it out a little bit and it would look better
Right.
to potential lenders.
Okay.
There's the 30 and 1%. Debts, clients come to you with those issues, we want to prioritize their issues. If it's debt, there are certain debts that are more important than others to pay. We want to look at this idea of what's most important. We want to survive, we want to keep a roof over our head and food on our plate. Debt collectors, their job is to get you to pay. And later in the semester, we'll look at what's illegal, what's harassing. It's not going to change the amount that you owe those dollars, but it does give you a claim against them, and you can help reduce the stress for your client. The debt collectors, just because they say you should pay something, I've prioritized, I want to keep the roof over my house, I want to keep being able to buy groceries. I'm not going to pay all my debts if I can't afford to, and I'm going to figure out which ones are most important. Credit scores, it's going to get worse, but I can build it back up later. I've prioritized, this is what I need right now. Stress, don't go on the stress shopping, binging spree. Stretching dollars in debt, thinking long term, it might be nice to have this vacation, fix this thing right now, but long term that's really gonna hurt me. Maybe I should get on better financial footing before I do that. Avoiding scams, knowing whether to file bankruptcy and getting help. So let's go into these. Now, choosing which debts to pay first. Secured is gonna be more important than unsecured. Secured means they can take something from me if I don't pay them. So the mortgage is a secured debt. If I don't pay my mortgage, they foreclose. We look at the foreclosure process and I'm homeless. So I'm out of a house. It does take a while. Car, if I haven't paid that off, they can seize the car. That secured credit card, they're keeping my deposit. Anything that has something that they can take is a secured debt. Those rent-to-own places, that would be a secured debt. The title loan would be a secured, not exactly debt, because they're giving me money for the title, but then they're gonna take the car if I don't pay them back. Unsecured is my promise to pay. And what I want to pay first is the things that are gonna keep me alive. The roof over my head and being able to continue to buy groceries. Minimum utility, so I don't want my heat shut off in the winter or cooling shut off in the hot summer. With bankruptcy, that can give me just filing a timeout on some of these processes. And if it's approved, I'm able to start with a clean slate or with a plan to pay them back over 3 to 5 years. Okay, so high priority, once a judge says that they can take something, they can put collateral on something that didn't have collateral. They can allow something to be seized. Anything that I owe that the government has now gotten involved in, they've got a lot of special powers. So they can garnish my wages, they can take Social Security away from me, they can take my tax refund away from me if the government gets involved. If it's a criminal offense, they could potentially take my driver's license away and put me in prison. With housing, we looked at 2 different ways housing could be taken away from us. We're being evicted, that was a place that we're renting, or we could be foreclosed upon, that was a place that we were buying. Auto loans, if we haven't paid them off, they're taking the car. We talked about some strategies for if your car is going to be repossessed. And really with all these, first step is communication. I want to reach out to the person that might be impacting me financially in a negative way before that happens. And I want to clean the stuff out of the car. I want to make sure I got my laptop out, all the things that I need right now. And instead of them having to hunt me down, I've taken the car to them and said, here's the keys. Now they're going to do their best to sell it, but it's not going to cost me as much because they didn't have to stalk me and take it while I was at work. Utility bills, I mentioned like you don't want your heat shut off in the winter, and for the most part they're probably not going to do that. You'd have to be really far behind, and then there's going to be exceptions if you are elderly, if you have small children where they won't. But if I move, I would have to pay a deposit in the next place, or most likely if it's the same company, I'm still going to have that same debt either way, but they're just going to add it onto that account. Child support, that can be garnished. So if your client is the one that is on the receiving end of child support and it's not getting paid, they file in the state that the non-paying parent is living, and whatever taxable wages they have will be garnished, and you can have them direct deposited to your client. Real estate taxes, that was what, if you had the mortgage, the escrow account was taken care of, so a little bit every month. First year after you have paid off your mortgage, you could have that sticker shock of all this is due at once. If you don't pay your real estate taxes, the government can take your property. They're most likely not going to. You can work out payment plans for that. But if it has come to the point where you stuck your head in the sand and didn't look at your bank account, didn't look at all these letters, just hoping the problem would go away, then it would be an issue. As federal student loans and taxes, both government things, if you don't pay your taxes, if you don't pay your federal student loan, they're able to start taking your dollars away. Anything, tax refunds, Social Security, federal benefits, they can take those away. With federal student loans, we had 2 ways to take a time out. Forbearance, this could be administrative when, like in the case of now, the SAVE Act is going through a court process, or it could be a COVID thing. So for 3.5 years, we got a timeout where it's 0% interest charge. It was just frozen. Nobody had to make those student loan payments. Or deferment, meaning you are a full-time student. You either went back to school or you're starting school, and you get a timeout on the existing loans plus the ability to take on additional. Now, low priority are these things that are not secured by anything, really. Medical, all these, maybe not loans from friends and family, but these other ones that are reported to FICO, they're gonna hurt my credit score. That's okay. I've prioritized, I wanna keep the roof over my head and be able to buy groceries. Medical, the 501c3 hospital, the nonprofit hospital, is required by law to offer a low cost, no cost services to somebody who qualifies. Qualifying would be somebody who's low income. Those debt collectors, their job is to convince you to pay. If all it's gonna do is cause a hit on your credit score, we prioritize, so we're there. It's already been impacted, it's gonna go worse. Threats to sue, the debt collector may say, hey, we're gonna sue you to get this. If it's a small amount, it may not be worth their time, and they can threaten legal action, that's legal, it's threatened to sue for this specific thing, but if you go to court, show up and make the defense, you've got your procedural issues we saw with eviction and foreclosure. If you don't show up, you get the default judgment entered against you. And that's only if they actually sue. If you owe a small amount, it may not be worth their time to take it to court. Withholding services, so fair, if you owe a store or somebody a whole bunch of money, they may no longer let you shop there until you pay your debt. Find another store, find other ways to get around it. That's the exporting options. Feeling of obligations and stress. Yeah, you may owe it, but if you don't keep the roof over your head, if you don't keep eating, you're not gonna survive. So help clients understand that this is the best choice. Yeah, you may owe it, but here's some ways where we can delay it. You'll get to it later. If you die, you can't pay it at all. If we dig ourselves deeper in a hole, it's not gonna help your stress. Skipping payments, paying back over time, negotiating, and refinancing. So skipping payments, maybe I don't pay every month, or maybe I pay a reduced amount. So maybe I'm not paying it all, but I'm putting a little something towards them. I'm gonna reach out to whoever it is, hopefully before I'm behind, to negotiate some sort of alternative payment plan. Hey, how about you take back the car early? Something to potentially keep the roof over my head longer. Refinancing. So if you're all good, there's no issues, I might want to refinance a mortgage when rates go down. If rates haven't gone down, even if it's going to cost me more in the long run, I might want to refinance to get lower payments. So switching from a 15-year to a 30-year mortgage. Reducing expenses and increasing income. We had a whole section on that. The different scams. Big ones there, the payday loans. So understand how those work. You have a job, you go to the payday loan company, and they will take a big chunk of your next paycheck, depending on how much you borrow from them. They're charging crazy high rates, and there's also going to be fees on top of you maybe not being able to pay or not being able to pay the full amount. So it adds up to a lot. The auto title was kind of like the pawn shop, but instead of the laptop, the gun, where here you keep it, give you some cash, and I have 60 days to come back and pay you this amount. Now it's for a car. Same idea, they're gonna give you less than the item is actually worth, but I have the right to come back and pay the amount that I borrowed from them with interest. If I don't, they keep it. With the auto title, they're just keeping the title rather than the vehicle, but I still would have been better off, if I'm gonna lose it, to have sold the car myself and gotten full value for it and switch to something cheaper. Whether it's another vehicle or taking public finance, public transportation. Refinancing, already mentioned that one. Student loan debt relief, that goes to that forbearance idea where the government wants to work with me. I just say, hey, I'm broke, here's my financial situation, here's some documentation to prove it. And they say, yep, you're broke, here's a timeout for a while. That doesn't mean that interest is gonna stop accruing, but I have a break from it and they're not gonna take action against me. Rent to own, we saw that it would cost double. If we bought it through the rent to own company, I can furnish my whole house for $20 a room, $30 a room, whatever, with full furniture sets, but the actual cost of all that is gonna be about double what I would pay if I had bought it myself. So I can avoid rent to own by, like Facebook Marketplace, get a free couch that somebody's trying to get rid of. Maybe it's not the couch I want, maybe that furniture doesn't match, but I've got something to sit on, and when I am financially able to, I can get something that I would rather have. Subprime credit cards, so higher interest rates, overdraft protection. So you can set this up automatically, but you have to actively do so. The bank isn't gonna do you any favors. Overdraft is when I write a check and I don't have the dollars in the account. Banks are gonna be jerks in that I get a paycheck and I write a check out. Both are happening the exact same day. They're gonna take the money out before they put my paycheck in. The last thing they do is deposit the paycheck after taking out all the things that came through that day. So if I do overdraft, they're gonna charge me a fee. If I manually go in, I could set up my checking account to, if it goes over, I want you to pull from my savings account. So that's what I did, and then my bank changed it to now it's gonna pull from the credit card. So I had to go back in and manually update it so that it would pull from the savings account. So small things that you could do that could save your client $35 on that overdraft or more if it's pulling from the credit card, because that's it is a cash advance. So you have the fee for overdrafting plus whatever the interest rate is immediately applied on the cash advance. Thank you, Liva. Bankruptcy, we can get our temporary timeout for keeping a roof over our head. The judge is gonna take 60 to 90 days to go through and see if I do qualify. It's hard to qualify if I'm doing a full-on, I'm out, I'm not paying any of this, and debts would just disappear. I would start over fresh slate. Or I set up a payment plan, and that one's easier to qualify for. You're saying, I'm gonna try to pay them back in 3 to 5 years, and maybe we're gonna do a reduced amount. I'm not gonna pay the 100% of what I owe, but I'll pay 70%, or I'm gonna try my best. And after that 3 to 5 years, then I walk away clean. Got medical debt and credit card debt. So thinking about, I have a need, I have a hernia, I need to get a hernia surgery. I'm gonna do that before I declare bankruptcy. Because if I do it after, now I have this medical debt on top of it. Maybe I can buy some things, some canned goods, some stuff that won't go bad on my credit card, and when I declare bankruptcy, they're not gonna take the canned goods. It was an unsecured debt, so I've got some food to eat. So thinking strategically on that. Court order payments, things I owe to the government, probably not gonna go away. Very small chance a student loan would. And then the cost of doing it to declare bankruptcy, there's paperwork. You could potentially do it yourself, but you probably are gonna have to hire an attorney, and there's some that work specifically in bankruptcy, and they're gonna know exactly what you have, so they're gonna be able to pull out their fee first. Your court costs, unavoidable. I got different filing fees with the court to do it. And that last point of the timing was what I was mentioning earlier. If I've got the surgery coming up, dental, buy some canned goods on the credit card, these different things that I wanna do before I declare bankruptcy. Different places we can go to for help. There's groups that will help us with specific issues or more general. With the eviction, so an eviction notice is a landlord telling somebody paying rent that you can't live here anymore for some reason. They come to me for help. I wanna see the lease. If anybody's got an eviction notice, I always wanna see the lease to see what the terms are, excuse me. or if they fear they're going to receive an eviction notice, I wanna look and see what the options are. Can they sublease? Sublease meaning somebody else is going to live there rather than you. And if you do sublease, what are the terms of that? Are you still responsible for any damage they do? Or are they stepping in as a brand new person? Are you responsible for finding that person? Is that person going to be subject to the approval of the landlord? So different things that could be built into that lease that I wanna know about. I want to first go to the landlord before I'm behind to potentially negotiate something and say, hey, I'm lost my job, I'm looking for work, but I may be unable to pay rent or at least the full amount. What if I pay you half this month and then next month another half, and then in 3 months I start paying that off with interest? Maybe I help you with landscaping or doing something around maintenance, handyman wise, if I've got those skills, but trying to work something out with them. If there is a hearing for this, so we're going to court, if I don't show up, that default judgment's gonna get entered against me and the judge is gonna go with whatever the landlord said. If I didn't show up to defend myself, it must be right. Any defenses I can raise, I've been paying on the 15th, even though it's due the 1st. I've been doing that for the last 5 months. It's never been an issue. Now all of a sudden I'm getting an eviction notice. Substandard living conditions, so the landlord is required to provide me a habitable space, whether that's a house, apartment, whatever. So if something has gone wrong, if the roof is leaking, if there's flooding, these things that the landlord is responsible for, if they haven't done that, I have a legitimate reason to not pay rent. The trick there is I have to be setting aside those dollars to show that, hey, I'm happy to pay rent, but not if I don't have a habitable space. If there's flooding, if I'm walking through a foot of water, these different things that the landlord is responsible for. On my own, if my stuff breaks, if I tear a hole in the wall, that's on me. I've got renter's insurance to cover my possessions in that case. The retaliatory eviction, landlord doesn't like you because you throw loud parties that are legal, but he just doesn't like that you're having parties. You turn him down for a date, something where it's personal. It's nothing you've done financially wrong, he just doesn't like you. And then if the case goes against you, you can appeal and get yourself a little bit longer to have a roof over your head. If you don't have an eviction notice, we're just looking at, okay, I'm not gonna be able to pay this in the future, or I got a job in Florida, I need to move somewhere for some reason. What are the options for breaking the lease? So again, I wanna read the lease and see that, you know, if I've only got 2 months left and the penalty for breaking a lease is 3 months of rent, well, I'm just gonna finish out my lease because that's cheaper. If I have to continue paying rent until the landlord finds somebody else, I wanna ensure that they're taking reasonable care in finding a new tenant. Because for them, that's more work. You're responsible for the rent until somebody else moves in, so am I really gonna try that hard to find a new tenant? So you gotta make sure that they are actually posting the position and trying to get somebody else to take that space. Any damage you might have done, so holes in the wall where you hung up something, repair those. If you clean, maybe rent a carpet shampooer, all these little things that you can do where they're not going to charge you as much. Take it out of your deposit, and if the deposit doesn't cover it, they can come after you for additional dollars. With subleasing, would those things go on to the new tenant? Would they just step into your shoes as if they had paid the deposit and you just forfeit your deposit to them, or they pay a new deposit? So figuring out what the lease says on that. And on that, carpet cleaning. Look at the state laws where you're at. In Texas, if somebody has rented the space for either 3 or 5 years, the landlord is obligated to replace the carpet anyway. So they couldn't charge you for that. The state requires that they replace the carpet. Military deployment, if you have orders shipping you somewhere, it doesn't have to be overseas, but just going somewhere else, they can't, you're able to break the lease just automatically. It doesn't matter what the lease says. You're military, that's a benefit that the government provides to you. You're entitled to be able to break the lease because I have orders deploying me to wherever. On the eviction notice, there is going to be certain things that have to be there. They're telling me what it is, notice to vacate, this is an eviction notice, get out within 45 days, and here's the amount that you have to pay, the option to cure. So if I'm 3 months behind in rent, here's that 3 months plus whatever penalties, here's that total, you pay this, we're good. It's as if you never received the notice. If we do go to court, if anything is wrong there, that option to cure is a penny off. I've got a procedural defense that can potentially delay it. Doesn't mean I'm not gonna get evicted, but it might start the process over. Foreclosure is like eviction, but now instead of renting, it's a place that I was buying. And the bank has the right to take my home. They hold the title until I completely pay it off. And if I haven't paid it off, if I get behind, they can take it. This one, they're less likely to do. I'm more likely to be able to negotiate with the landlord. They're used to finding new tenants and filling that space with a new person every year, every 6 months, or however often. With a foreclosure, the bank doesn't really want to take the house. They would rather you continue to pay the money. So if I reach out to them early on, they're more likely to work with me. Those 4 types we had, where first one is the most common one, the bank is taking it. Second one, I didn't pay my property taxes or some sort of taxes within my municipality. The court judgment, where, I don't know, I hit a bus full of children and the family sued me and the judge says, okay, you don't have assets, or you don't have enough money to pay that, we're gonna take the house. So some court judgment that takes it away from me. Those condo fees, so condo's like an apartment, except I own my specific unit. And then the condo association, if I pay my regular fees, I'm good, and follow their rules, and they're responsible for all the common areas, the hallways, the shared spots. Process through that, they're gonna give me the notice, it's gonna have pretty much the same information that the eviction notice had on it. And I have the same procedural defenses to that, to delay foreclosure. Options after foreclosure, they're gonna sell the house. They don't wanna keep it, they're not gonna live in it. So they're gonna sell it for a surplus or a deficiency. If they sell it for a surplus, I get some dollars back. If there's a deficiency, I still owe money. I can potentially bid on the house myself if it goes up to auction. And with that option, that deficiency or surplus may be moved if we've agreed to, hey, whatever it sells for, we'll call it good, you're walking away. In that case, I wouldn't get that surplus, but if there was a deficiency, I would be responsible. So we got the preliminary notice, right to reinstate and right to redeem. That was the option to cure in the eviction notice. Takes a long time, so they're probably not gonna do it, but I have time to keep the roof over my head. I'm showing up to court, I'm making whatever procedural defenses I can. I am begging the court for mercy, saying, hey, here's my situation, please let me stay a little bit longer. And they may say, cool, we'll give you another 6 months, or not, but it doesn't hurt to ask. Better to act sooner rather than later. Reaching out to the bank, here's the issue, here's the financial cash flow that stopped because I lost my job, I got paralyzed, I have an insurance claim and it will be coming, but I'm behind now, so can I pay less now? Can I refinance from 15 to 30? These different options to try to make it work. And if I can do that before I even receive this foreclosure notice, then I'm better off. Same ideas here, I mentioned that. I mentioned the deficiency or surplus. Managing dollars. So budgeting, I want to spend less than I'm bringing in. So my outflows should not exceed my inflows. Ideally, my inflows exceed outflows, so the dollars I'm receiving, I'm able to set aside money for an emergency fund, to save for the future, whatever it might be. I know you also want net worth, that was the assets minus liability, so I wanna know all the stuff that they have. If I am spending more than I'm bringing in, I wanna find a way to either increase the cash coming in, so ask my boss for a raise, take on a second job. I sent out the different ways that you could potentially get part-time jobs. There's the tutor, just got another email. The athletic tutor center, Bill Battle, is looking for people, so potential job on campus, but adding extra jobs to that to increase income. For reducing expenses, I'm looking at the budget, where the dollars are going, and we have different ways that we can track that. Paper, pencil, Excel, some sort of software, and you may have a base to work with already if you're mostly spending on a credit card. So the bank is tracking where those dollars are going. If I'm sending a check somewhere, they may be able to categorize that. And you may have to manually go in and make some adjustments. It's not gonna be perfect, the bank one, but that would give you a start to see where things are going. With those reductions, I need to eat and I need to keep a roof over my head, but maybe I don't need to keep this particular roof over my head. Maybe I can downsize, maybe I can bring in a roommate, somebody to keep that cost down while still keeping the roof over my head. With the food, you're making the cheap, healthy meal. We saw store brands versus other brands are going to be sometimes the exact same thing, just in a different can. Maybe everyone doesn't get paid, but we saw earlier where we prioritize those things. What's going to be what I do or do not pay? If your client comes in and they own a home, I might be able to file for a homestead exemption, meaning they wouldn't have to pay property taxes, or they wouldn't have to pay 100% of what the property taxes were. Pretty much every state's gonna have something set up for veterans, and then age, and then different disability levels. So looking at whatever your individual state is to help them out. Utility conservation, unplug stuff when you're not using it, turning off lights, trying to use less water. That can have an impact. It may not be huge, depending on what you're doing, but it can help. Telephone expenses. We talked about how there are programs out there to get a cell phone. It's gonna be a very basic phone, but you'd have access to the internet. You'd have a phone for a low or no cost. You might be able to set up a family plan where you and a group of friends get together, and now you've got 5 lines instead of 1. Issue there is everybody going to be able to pay their fair share, but we have less per phone cost with those group plans. Homeowners insurance, we talked about PMI, the private mortgage insurance, that if you didn't pay 20%, you have to pay to the bank. So it's a specific insurance that's required. At 18%, I can reach out to them in writing and say, hey, I'm at 18%, can you cancel it? And they probably will. At 20%, they have to. But I might have to reach out to and remind them, hey, I'm at 20% now, cancel that PMI. On the homeowner's insurance, just like if I had a car loan, and that would be other insurance, if I'm still making payments, the bank is gonna require I have insured the asset that they have collateral on, the thing that they could seize. So with the home, I'm gonna have to have a certain minimum amount of insurance. So if it burns down, if it gets hit by a hurricane, if somebody slips and falls in the house and sues me, homeowner's insurance can take care of some of that. With a bank, they wanna make sure that they have that asset to take from me. Once I've paid off the bank and the title is mine, I don't have to have insurance, or I could choose to reduce it. I'm taking on the risk that if that hurricane does come through and I don't have insurance, it's all on me. I just have no roof over my head, and I have no way of getting some dollars for that. Same thing with the car. While I'm making payments on it, the bank, whoever lent me the money that has the ability to take that car from me, they're going to require that I have coverage on the car, comprehensive coverage. So if something happens, if it's my fault, if it's somebody else's fault, insurance will pay to fix the car. They're gonna be able to get their dollars. They're gonna be able to have something to take. Once I'm no longer making those payments, I don't have to keep comprehensive coverage. I can switch to liability. So every state is gonna require that you either have liability or show proof of the ability to pay. If something should happen, they're gonna have minimums on that, but I could potentially reduce that. Health insurance, same idea there. Maybe I can get a cheaper option. We talked about the Affordable Care Act that had the platinum, gold, silver, bronze levels of coverage, which more expensive for the higher ones, less expensive for the lower. But there was that caveat with the silver, you can get subsidies from the government where it would actually be cheaper than the bronze and you get better coverage. I can play with my deductible and premium payment. So if I raise my deductible, my premium goes down. I raise my premium, deductible goes down. But if I want to reduce my monthly cost now, the easiest one to hit is the premium. So if I raise my deductible, risk I run into whatever medical issue, I'm gonna have to pay more out of pocket, but my monthly cost on premiums is low. And I could potentially change that to something that's better for me later when I've figured out my dollars a little bit better. Sliding scale community service, talk about that as one of the ways that you can charge your clients, more for the people with more resources, less for those with less. So your client may be able to take advantage of that. Public transportation rather than that car. We sell the car, we have some cash, we're able to pay off whatever was owed if there was something owed. And if public transportation is available to the places I'm trying to go, maybe I'm even gonna look for another job that is on the bus line or the subway line. Reducing retirement savings, more important that I stay alive now. So if I've been putting 20% into retirement, but I have this credit card debt that's charging me 22% a month, well, maybe I drop retirement to 5% to get that 100% company match, and the remaining 15% excess I start putting towards that credit card debt. Kicking adult children out of the nest. Unemployment, always appeal if they say no, but if I was laid off, I have the right to go file for unemployment. Each state is gonna have their own agency for that, and companies in those states are paying into unemployment. So they're paying for this, or they should be. Reduced hours, if you've been regularly working 25 hours and now they're just not scheduling anymore at the restaurant, you're not getting any shifts. They're not saying you're laid off, they're just not scheduling you. That's a form of a qualifying unemployment. So if they're not scheduling, even if it's just reduced hours, they're still scheduling you for 5 hours a week. They may be kind of gambling on you not knowing your rights to be able to file for unemployment. Or they may just not have the hours. If you were fired or you quit, almost always if you quit, you're not gonna be able to file for unemployment. But if you quit because, hey, they're only scheduling me for 2 hours a week, I had to go somewhere else, I couldn't make these 2 hours, I had to take another job that was giving me 20 hours a week in a different location, and they wouldn't let me have the random. Some point, I may get 2 hours that are scheduled for me this week on a Wednesday at 3 p.m. If you were fired for cause, for like a good cause, you're not gonna get unemployment. But if it was something that you shouldn't have been fired for, then you can still get unemployment. SNAP was food stamps, 2 for 1 at the farmer's market, encouraging you to eat healthy. Taking advantage of those resources out there, understanding if a client qualifies for them will be key. So if you're low income, the government doesn't want you to starve. Other food programs, WIC specifically, really you think about it for children, but women, infants, and children. National lunch programs, so in schools, a lot of them will give you reduced or free lunches. You just have to fill out the paperwork to qualify. And then food banks. We have a food pantry here on campus. There's other places in the community. Temporary assistance, utilities assistance. Already mentioned the charitable organizations with food, and if you are in a place that has been hit by something that is a national disaster, FEMA will provide some sort of support for that. And it could be a credit on your taxes, it could be some cash now, could be places to live. Social Security, maybe you were planning to file for it at age 70 because you get a larger check, but if the need is now, file for it now. Social Security disability, we saw the video on how to apply for it, and the length of time it takes to actually get approved. So it could be a while, but we want to start that process sooner rather than later. Taking on additional jobs, education, already mentioned deferment. So if I already had student loans, I'm able to defer those and take on additional student loans. If I didn't have student loans and I go back to school, I can get loans now. Those loans don't have to be just used for tuition. It's also qualified expenses, which could be a roof over my head and feeding me and transportation. So all these things that I would need to, be alive while I'm going to school and get to school. And then potentially increase my earning power when I get out. Reducing expenses, don't shop hungry. Maybe go with a list. And if there's something you regularly buy, find out where it's consistently cheapest. If it's rent to owns where we're paying double, we don't want to do that. A bank account instead of paying to cash a check. Mentioned the different places we could potentially save in grocery shopping. Eggs, beans, peas, and lentils, super cheap compared to steak. Military, they've got the commissary where they can shop much cheaper, and that's online or on base. These membership organizations, Costco, Sam's Club, you have to be able to pay for the membership. If you've got enough mouths to feed, then it makes it worthwhile. If you don't, then it might be better to shop at an Aldi or Trader Joe's. Comparing unit prices, stores are there to make money. They're gonna try to trick you with their buy two, get one free, buy three, get two free setups, or just even the straight up buy one, get one. Maybe you're gonna buy more than you would have bought otherwise. But you might want to buy in bulk if it's something you regularly get, and I can afford to get 10 cans of soup today because they are on sale, and I will eat them over time. If you do buy in bulk, you want it to be something that is not gonna go bad over time, whether you're freezing it or it stays in the pantry. Some websites to keep food from going bad. Store deals and your home garden. Talk about green onions are really easy to grow. Whatever veggies, for the most part, that you buy from the grocery store, you might be able to grow on your own. Other ways, real estate tax reductions, I can challenge the assessment. So property taxes are based on their assessed value of my home. If I disagree with that, I can dispute it. And if it drops down, then I'm paying less because it's a percentage of that value. Mentioned the utility conservation and telephone. Let's see what those others. School-related expenses. We had our tax-free day before the school year, so being able to plan ahead and avoid whatever sales taxes there are in your state. Religious expenses and charitable contributions. Maybe I don't donate to the church, maybe I pay my mortgage instead. Mentioned sliding scale, public transportation. Unnecessary payroll deductions. Maybe I cut out dental insurance and I go to the dental school and get a free teeth cleaning from dental hygienists, or the root canal from some student supervised by professors and great equipment. Adult children living at home, we can talk about getting them out. If you have prescription needs, contacting the company that makes it directly or buying generic will reduce the cost. The company may give it to you for free or for a reduced cost just by asking. The reason generics are cheaper is because they didn't have to put in the effort of researching what acetaminophen does for your aspirin. somebody else did that, and after a certain point, they have to allow anybody to make it. So it's the same thing whether you're buying the name brand or the generic. Dental schools, in order to graduate, they gotta do those certain procedures, a cleaning, a filling, a something, they have to check off all those boxes. And we saw those different places where we could go here and in Birmingham for some of it treat yourself and some of it haircuts. Already mentioned the staying in network with medical debt. If the insurance says, oh, we're only covering this much, you can say, well, no, it should be this full amount, this is the standard price for it, and I'm supposed to get 100% of my annual physical exam covered. Talking about the 501c3, that's the nonprofit hospital. Negotiating with the hospital, they're not really in the money business, they're gonna have to make money to stay in business, but I can potentially negotiate a lower bill with them. If there's any errors in the bill, they've charged me for something I didn't receive. Going into who you are, and recognize that this goes for the client as well. Your values, beliefs, and attitudes are going to flavor the way that you work with clients. Explicit versus implicit promises. Explicit, that was the scope of the engagement. I'm going to help you with your credit card debt. Implicit, you're gonna be better off for this. So explicit, I'm telling them exactly what I'm gonna do. We talked about the counselor with multiple roles. In the relationship, we've got, again, our goal of counseling. So you'll see that multiple times throughout the semester. We'll go through those tactics and the 4 stages. We've got 6 here, 4, 5, 6, 7. We've got this one, we want them to spread their wings and fly. What's the purpose of counseling? Our tactics, set realistic goals for what's going on. You're not going to be out of debt in a month. It might take you a year to deal with this. The structure, I'm setting that up, the counselor is setting that up, and that's part of where my power comes from, setting up this structure. And I don't wanna just tell them what to do, I want that collaborative process to be in place. Recognizing some differences, I may have the different values where, no, don't keep that Mercedes, and client is like, no, I really want to keep the Mercedes, and there was options to get a second job, those other things to allow a client to keep the Mercedes, even though that wasn't what you wanted them to do. Mutual involvement, collaborative process. Our 4 stages, initiating, they come into your office, everything's communicating something, where the office is, what you're wearing. Exploring, what are we trying to do with this client? Financial and personal resources, so going beyond just net worth and cash flows of, do you have family members that you can reach out to? Do you have a professional network that might be able to help you find another job? Understanding what we've got and then implementing our plan. We're acting on whatever it is that we gotta do. And better to spend too much time understanding before jumping into acting. We wanna make sure we've got the full picture. Our relationship stages, we had Bug Pie for financial counseling, and it followed that EGAD PIM. EGAD, I made it with the presenting the plan added into CFP model. Same idea here. We are building a relationship, establishing a little bit of rapport at the beginning, and then going into what is it they're here for, finding solutions, coming up with a plan, and continuing to evaluate it, but maybe with the CFP, they're monitoring it annually, twice a year, whatever. They're making sure it's on track, where with counseling, it's not that long-term engagement. All right, we are out of time. Let's see. We got 20 more slides. If there's not a, there might be a class coming in here. I can just talk to myself for a little while until they come in, and you'll have the recording. All right, so I'll talk to myself for as long as I can until they get in here. Roll Tide, feel free to stay. So we've got that reciprocal relationship and communication, where what I'm saying to them and what they're saying to me, the words I choose, the things I focus on are going to impact how they take it. And the same thing the other way. throughout it, I wanna give them positive feedback. That was the cheerleading of, awesome, great move just coming here to get help, and good job paying off this amount of the debt, even if you didn't get it. Negative isn't gonna be as helpful. That would be where I'm just saying, oh, you didn't achieve your goals, you suck. Yeah.
Sorry, I have a question. Is there gonna be math on this exam?
You might do the same kind of math you did last time.
Okay.
I'll put it out in the announcement.
Okay.
It's probably gonna be more of the short answer, or math of, you know, what percentage is payment history, something like that, where you add up.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Giving feedback in a positive way, where you kind of guide them to a better outcome. Let's focus on what you did well, rather than attacking the individual. Something where we can actually use it. I don't wanna overwhelm with too much information. I wanna give them enough to help them with this specific goal, and then maybe we can move on to something else later. Our guidelines, I don't want to lead the client into a relationship where they think that they can't trust. They think that I'm not going to keep their stuff confidential. Responsibility to my clients, keeping it confidential, doing my best to help them. I'm confident to do so. If I'm not, I'm giving that internal or external referral. To colleagues, same idea, and I wanna be good to myself. If I'm working too much in a negative environment, that's gonna take its toll on me. Now with listening, we have these different things. Attending, are you paying attention? Assigning meaning, what does this word mean to you? What does this idea mean to you? So each person is gonna assign their own meaning to the words, and I wanna make sure, as a part of this communication process, I wanna clarify as we go on. We're always categorizing things. This is specific to housing, this is specific to financial, this is a social thing, but we're categorizing what we're hearing, and then remembering, which can be helped by taking notes and having some sort of recording. Rules for listening, I want to make sure that I know what the main idea is. What is it they're most concerned about? And I may need to redirect that when we are prioritizing, but I want to at least start out responding to what the client thinks the main idea is. Responding to emotional messages, that was the pathos. I want to pay attention to the elephant they're writing, the significant details. This is the interest rate on the loan. This is the eviction notice issues where it had some sort of procedural defense, but the significant things that are gonna allow me to help them. Justifiable inferences, Sherlock Holmes, it's elementary. I wanna make some very small leaps in logic, but I also wanna clarify those and make sure that I am getting the right idea there. Now with pacing, nonverbal, that's my body, that's what I'm wearing. It's kind of matching what they're doing. So I don't want to probably be a financial counselor wearing a tuxedo every day. And I don't want to be loud and shouting. So verbal pacing, I am kind of matching theirs and hopefully bringing it to something more calm. Tactics within active listening, restating what they're saying, maybe not adding anything to it, but that lets them know that I am listening. Same idea with paraphrasing. And it may allow them to elaborate and give me more information there. Summarizing into section, okay, so this is what you're saying, this is what we want to do. Making sure that I am, and they are, both understanding the same thing. Clarifying to make sure that I do understand, and then reflecting on what I've heard. So that's on my own afterwards. Learning styles, we had visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. And we saw, I think in investments, that Allie was a very visual learner. Understanding where your clients are by the words they use, if they're seeing, picturing, I might use more words that respond to that, and I might set up more visuals, charts, things like that to help that specific client, versus somebody that has the auditory learning style where it'd just be more words. Kinesthetic, they're playing with the calculator online to see what different payments would do to impact their debt. And we saw some of those tools on Bankrate. Basic strategies, identifying client perspectives, what are they trying to do, setting those goals. They want to be out of debt, they want to keep the roof over their head. Here's some potential solutions. I want to see the lease, I want to go through what we could possibly do, so this kind of goes back to that bug pie idea, and implementing the plan. Decision making, we had our logical and creative, so two big frameworks kind of there, or two big categories, the logical versus the creative intuitive, and none of them are right or wrong, it depends what works best for the client, but it is some sort of system. So two types, rational and logical versus intuitive and creative. We've got the list there for rational and intuitive. I would want you to probably be able to say three, maybe 2 or 3 rational and then 2 or 3 creative, and apply them. Then we've got steps for each. You've got the recording from last exam where I go through each of these. So I will skip through there because I think the class wants to be in here. And yeah, be sure to read. Slides won't get you 100. Stay hydrated, wear sunscreen, and roll tide.
Is there a printer in this building?
Yes, what are you trying to print?
Medical papers?
Okay. Oh, Dee Dee's out today. Let me shut this off.